YouTube, welcome back to TXC Tells All. So in today's video, we are going to talk about, can you buy a house with a bunch of student loan debt? Watch this video to the end to find out if it's possible. The answer is yes. Yes, you can buy a house with a bunch of student loan debt. I'm talking six-figure student loan debt. And how do I know that? Because I did it, my husband did it, and I know a bunch of other people who unfortunately have high student loan debt that have been able to buy a house. In this video, I'm going to talk about what you can do to become one of those people like me that had a bunch of student loan debt and was afraid that they weren't going to be able to buy a house, but found out that that is absolutely not true. And there are many different ways that you can qualify for a mortgage, even with up to six-figure student loan debt. So whenever I'm watching a video and a YouTuber is telling me, yeah, sure, you can do something, I always want to know how. How do you do it? How did you do it? So I'm going to tell you that right now, how I was able to buy a house with over six-figure student loan debt. How I did it through a program called NACA. And make sure you watch my video on TXC Tells All about how to get a house with no down payment. Not only will that tell you how I bought my house without putting down a down payment, but it will also explain how I went through the NACA process. And I know for a fact that people use NACA, people like me who have high student loan debt, as a vehicle to get approved for a mortgage. So make sure that you watch that video, how to get a house with no down payment. And in that video, I will explain exactly how I went through the NACA program, which can be really helpful to you. But that is the first thing that I wanted to tell you in this video is, how do I know that you can get a house with a lot of student loan debt? Because I did it, and I did it through the NACA program, NACA, and that stands for Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. They are all over the United States. I'm here in Houston, Texas, and so I visited one of the field offices here and worked through the program here. But I know they have offices in California, Georgia, New York, New Jersey, all over the United States. So just go on their website, NACA, that's NACA, and you will be able to see if they have an office in your state and how you can go through that program. Okay, so I can tell you that the issue, or one of the major issues with trying to purchase a home with lots of student loan debt, is debt to income ratio. If you're in that situation where you have a lot of student loans, I'm sure you've heard that term used before. And that basically comes into play because many of us with six-figure student loan debt are not looking at incomes that are high enough to offset that amount of loans. So you get out of school, if you have a postgraduate degree, you're looking a lot of times at six-figure loans. I know many lawyers, like in my field, doctors, have super high student loan debt, and there's nothing that you can do about that. I mean, unless you have somebody write you a check to go to school, which is not my story, and I know it's not a lot of people's stories out there, then you're looking at high student loan debt, and the debt is not going to disappear before you're at the point in your life where you might want to purchase a home or purchase a property. But one thing that I can tell you that we had to do, me and my husband, when we were working through the NACA program to purchase our first home, we did have to eliminate some debt. And that wasn't student loan debt. That wasn't the debt that they were talking about that would preclude us from being approved for a mortgage. It was credit card debt. So we had to pay off one of our credit cards in order to qualify for a loan, even through that program. So just being honest and upfront, it is not the student loan debt, but even though there are programs that will qualify you with the high student loan debt, they may require that you pay down some of your debt. So that's just something to keep in mind. Yes, you can get a mortgage and purchase a home with high student loan debt, but you may have to pay down some other debt if you have it. So just keep that in mind. The student loan debt is not going to be a end-all be-all for you purchasing a home, but there may be a requirement that you pay down some of your other debt to balance your debt to income ratio. Okay, so like I said, the answer is yes. If you have a bunch of student loans like I do, you still can qualify for a mortgage and buy a house. But I think one important thing to know is your debt to income ratio, because that, in preparing to buy a house, is what the banks are going to be looking at for pre approval, or at least it's one of the things that is going to be a big part of the consideration. So, one way that you can figure that out, and a good tool, is this debt to income ratio calculator that is on Zillow. So if you just Google debt to income ratio calculator Zillow, that will pop up, and I'll also put it in the description box below. And you can actually put in the information that you need to calculate your debt to income ratio, and it'll tell you what your debt to income ratio is, and if that is good, ideal, bad. So that is a good indicator of whether or not you would qualify to get a loan. And then you can go from there and start considering what it is you need to do to improve that. And it doesn't mean paying off your student loans, because I mean, for many of us are like, well, right now that's impossible. So if that's the criteria, then I'll never be able to buy a home or purchase a property. But that's not the case. But there may be some other things that you need to do. For example, like I had to pay off a credit card. So use that Zillow debt to income ratio calculator to at least determine where you are. Are you okay? Are you really bad? Are you great? And that will help you determine what steps you need to take next. Another way that you can consider getting over the student loan debt hurdle when looking to purchase a new home is considering a smaller bank. Here in Houston, two of the smaller banks that I know of that do good business as far as residential and commercial loans is Prosperity Bank and Allegiance Bank. Those are smaller banks here than your traditional Bank of America, Citibank, Chase, Wells Fargo, that may be more flexible with your debt to income ratio and what they allow to qualify you for a mortgage. So whatever, wherever you are in your area, try to get some referrals on some smaller community and local banks, and consider meeting with those banks and having them look over your financial history and your current financial situation, and see if they would consider qualifying you for a mortgage. The great thing about meeting with some of these smaller banks, it's a little bit more of a one-on-one relationship, and you can sit down and they'll tell you, well, these are the issues that you can fix, and maybe in the future come back to us. If you don't qualify right then, you can come back to them and see if they will approve you, but they'll tell you exactly what you need to do to make a better financial picture to be pre-approved for a mortgage. So look into that. Look into some of the smaller local banks in your area to see if they have more flexible requirements for borrowers. That's usually the case when you compare the requirements for the smaller banks versus the larger, more conventional banks. So I did want to talk about what's known as the 1% rule, which is sometimes detrimental to people like me who have high student loan debt, and but it's not. Every bank doesn't use it. All conventional loans don't use it. So the 1% rule is like this. So let's say that you are a borrower and you are on an income-based repayment plan that lowers your monthly student loan payment considerably, which is the case for a lot of us that have high student loan debt. We are on an income based or IDR, which our student loan debt are all of our expenses and our income are factored in, and the actual payment that the loan servicer calculates is lowered because we are on that repayment plan. The 1% rule says that even though the lowered amount is the actual amount that the borrower is paying per month, the mortgage lender has to look at the 1% of the balance owed on the student loan debt. So obviously, for many of us, the monthly payment that we're making each month, because of the income-based repayment programs, is much lower than 1% of our balance. So if the banks are looking at that 1% and not looking at what we're actually paying, it puts us in a worse position. For conventional loans, mortgage lenders have more flexibility with that. They don't have to apply the 1% rule as strictly. But I will tell you, for FHA loans, which is a loan that is considered by many first-time home buyers because of the lower requirement as far as a down payment, many first-time home buyers look into that. But for people with student loan debt that's very high, that 1% rule can become very detrimental and basically disqualify them from being able to be considered for those kind of loans. That's why I'm saying definitely take a look at my video on how to get a house without a down payment, talking about NACA. And if you have questions about NACA that I did, look at that below, because obviously in my circumstance, they did not strictly apply that 1% rule. I can tell you right now, I would not have qualified. Me and my husband would not have qualified to be pre-approved for a mortgage and be able to purchase our home. So like I said, NACA is one program that you can look into to get over that hurdle of having high student loan debt. There are other programs out there. Do some research, but that 1% rule I did want to talk about in that video, because that's what is causing a lot of people with high student loan debts not to be approved for mortgages, but there are ways around that. So make sure you look into that. I hope this video was helpful. If you like this video, please make sure you hit that like button. Also hit the subscribe button. TXC Tells All posts new videos every single Sunday. And if you have questions about my experience or about anything that I talked about in this video, please put them in the comment section below. I would be happy to respond to you and give you more information or be as helpful as possible. I know the home buying process can be difficult and navigating it can be difficult. So if I can help in any way with my experiences, I'd be happy to do that. So if you have any questions or comments or other information from your experience, if you're like me, a person with high student loan debt, please comment in the section below. Like I said, make sure you like this video, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time on TXC Tells All. Thanks.